I kind of think, in looking at this Week 12 main slate here on a Wednesday, that it might be my favorite slate of the entire year. Now, that's kind of odd because typically my enthusiasm for a slate increases as the week goes along. We get more value plays, so you can be more creative. I kind of think this one's good right now, which makes me pretty enthusiastic about how we can build things out for the Sunday slate. We're going to break down the Sunday main slate for today, get you set for that. Hopefully, win you some cash as well on Sunday over on FanDuel.com. This is the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Joined here, as always, by Brandon Gdula. He is the senior managing editor of numberFire.com. Brandon, Week 12, I think looks pretty sick. How you doing today?
I'm good. Yeah, it looks like a good slate. Sometimes I feel like when we do this, the show on Wednesday, due to the holiday, we go in a bit, I don't want to say half-hearted because like the effort's there, but we just don't know enough about the situations.
Clear eyes,
I think we know it.
Can't lose.
I think we know.
Clear eyes, firm takes, can't lose.
I'm assuming that's a reference, but
oh my gosh, you've never watched Friday Night Lights, the TV show?
Yeah, we talked about this. I tried it. It was not.
You would have seen it. It's in like the first episode.
Yeah, but it not really my thing.
Okay, how about this? Eyes closed, head first, can't lose. Do you get that one?
No.
It's a Brooklyn Nine-Nine reference. You're just, why do I talk to you? Like, what's the point?
My
gosh.
I don't know.
I'm out here.
You've been talking to me a lot this week. Three
I know. It's our third straight day with a podcast. Speaking of which, if you're looking for our Thanksgiving show, that is already up. We posted that yesterday. It's up on the FanDuel YouTube page and up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, breaking down the 3-game Thanksgiving slate. Timestamps for each game are in there in case you want to skip ahead for like single game stuff. That is up right now. This is the main slate on Sunday. We're recording this Wednesday due to the holiday, which means injury stuff's going to change. We're going to go through tentative injury notes throughout the show for today. Weather will change. Stuff's going to change. But honestly, Brandon, I think this slate rules. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, it already is kind of easy to build some lineups that I like for this week. And again, usually I feel like when we do this, the Thanksgiving the main slate show during Thanksgiving week, usually we're like, well, if then, it's just if then statements the whole time.
Yeah.
We have a few of those that are crucial, but we also have enough intel outside of that to build some good lineups Wednesday. So it's a good situation to be in.
I can spend up at wide receiver. I can feel good about some lower salaried running back plays. It's fun. We're going to break down what those lower salary backs are, where we're spending our flexibilities. I think we got some fun games to stack too, not just the games we're talking about in the bookmaker section, but some others too. So we'll get to that for the Week 12 main slate in just 1 second. But first, as mentioned, check out the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed for all your DFS needs, not just the Thanksgiving podcast, but also Tom Vecchia with the Daily ISO covering NBA DFS. No show Thursday or Friday, but we do have one for Wednesday and also next week for sure. So get subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Football fans, make this a Thanksgiving to remember with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because when you bet an NFL same-game parlay from now through November 28th, which I think is Monday, but don't know, we'll say Monday, all customers can get up to $100 in free bets, win or lose. Just bet an NFL same-game parlay or same-game parlay plus of at least $20. The bigger your bet, the more you'll get back in free bets. NFL same-game parlays are the perfect way to combine your bets for a chance at a larger payday. Build your own or choose from one of the popular SGPs pre-built for you in FanDuel's top-rated sportsbook app. However you want to play, get up to $100 in free bets, win or lose, when you bet an NFL same-game parlay of 4 legs or more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus in select states. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable free bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Max free bet $100. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. In Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In Connecticut, 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In Indiana, 109 with it. In Wyoming and Kansas, 1-800-522-4700. In Kansas, ksgamblinghelp.com. In Louisiana, 1-877-770-STOP. In New York, 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Tennessee, call the red line at 1-800-889-9789. Or in West Virginia, 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Let's dive into this slate, the Week 12 main slate, and talk about our slate overview for this week. And Brandon, to me, the key thing, two things stand out to me. The first one is that we have lower salaried backs who have a pretty reliable path to upside. Those guys being, as of now, most likely Rachaad White, but definitely Antonio Gibson, definitely Isaiah Pacheco, and then potentially Samaje Perine as well. I would be okay with all those guys. If Mixon can't go, we get Perine. I think that's a really fun option to have. Second thing is, there are like 5 games I could justify stacking. Now, not all those games involve a quarterback. Some of them are no quarterback games, but there are a lot of ways you can play this and still feel pretty good about things. So value running backs, decent number of games we can stack. What's the slate overview for you?
Yeah, I think sifting through the running backs and getting the prioritization correct, and not getting overexposed to value backs who maybe have a little bit more more question marks than some others. I think that there's really no issue with Antonio Gibson, right? Like we saw him in positive script last week, surprisingly. So I think that there's really no reason to be worried about someone like Antonio Gibson. I think with Perine, there's still a little bit more projection. Pacheco, there's, the passing game work probably not going to quite be there, but I know that you and I won't quite get there, but there are some other names that I think optimizers will like a lot, such as Latavius Murray at 6,200. I think Michael Carter at 62 as well. Like, there's going to be a lot of names there, and figuring out the better ones and excluding the ones we shouldn't be as high on, I think is going to be key.
Yeah, I think so too. And the good thing is too, we don't have to force in thin plays. Like with Mike White starting for the Jets, we're probably going to hear a lot of talk about Michael Carter because he got a lot of targets when White was starting last year. I think that's pretty thin, personally, because the Jets' rushing offense sucks. That's not going to change without Zach Wilson because the running backs aren't that great. The offensive line is not that great. I know it's a pretty good matchup with the Bears, but I don't want to go at a guy just because he got a lot of targets from a quarterback last year. I think that I can be picky and not force in guys like Carter specifically when I have other options. I don't have to, extend myself if there's a game I'm shaky about. If I decide, this Chargers Cardinals game, not doing it for me, I don't have to force that. I think that I've got ways to play things. So I think that is very encouraging. Let's take a look at the injuries for week 12. Again, we're doing this Wednesday, so there will be more injuries that pop up that we don't know about. So check the numberFire player news page, check your favorite player news source, whatever that may be, and try to digest the way this would impact things. Start things off with Joe Mixon. He's in concussion protocol, puts his status in week 12 up in the air. He could play, but Samaje Perine's salary is $6,600. How high would you be on Perine if Mixon can't go?
Yeah, I'm actually going to, what my slate overview should have probably added was the reality of the holiday this week, where staying in tune with the news is important to get a leg up, but also finding some perspective and making sure that you're not just completely avoiding all the family for your DFS lineups. But yeah, staying in tune, figuring out what happened, like think through a contingency on Wednesday or Friday, of what to do if you love Perine, but we get news that Mixon's going to play. Like, just think about that a little bit earlier if you can find some time to think through that. But without Mixon, Perine, we talked on Monday about this. You were higher on Perine than I was. I think that Perine would probably be third for me among the value backs behind Gibson and Rachaad White personally. But he's a tier above. I mean, I know that you and I don't love Latavius Murray and Michael Carter, but like,
what
those
about
are Pacheco number 3.
So above Samaje Perine?
Above Perine, yeah.
Why?
I think that we have a spot where P. Ryan's team is going to score about 30 and have a lot of rushing work. I don't necessarily think that P. Ryan will have a featured role. He'll get receiving work, but I don't see him getting like 20 carries. I think Pacheco is going to have a season best on the ground this week just due to the game script.
Okay. I disagree with the like I think that he's going to get like if you're talking about him versus Rashad White and him versus Pacheco, he is much more likely to get passing game work than either of those guys. I think by a wide margin, and he'll be the goal line back. So even though the scoring expectation might not be as high, I want access to that passing game work. He gets me it for $600 a game. I think is very stackable, like a very good game. It's a tough matchup. You know, the Titans very good against the rush, but I'm using for passing game work, using it for touchdown equity, and I think he's going to have that. So I'd put him second behind Gibson, and I think he's in the same tier as Gibson at worst.
Okay, I have Gibson, probably tier of his own, and then I'd say White, Pacheco, and P. Ryan in a tier of their own. I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that Rashad White is expected to be the featured guy for the Buccaneers against the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting probably 50-50, honestly, similar to what they did in the first half against Seattle, which was 50-50, right down the middle, and no targets for him there. Pretty windy game, which lowers scoring expectations. So, you know, that's the issue for me is like, I think there is more uncertainty in his profile than there would be for P. Ryan if P. Ryan gets a start.
So I think the real thing here is we're going to use Gibson.
Yeah.
We're going to use P. Ryan.
If Mixon doesn't go, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's we're going to use Rashad White and we're going to use
Pacheco.
Yeah. So those are 4 value backs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can bump them up and down all we want, but I think they're all very good plays.
They're all very reasonable, for sure. Same team, Jamar Chase, expected to practice this week coming off his hip injury. I don't think he'll play. He's missed the past 3 games, but he might play. How much would a return for Chase impact your view of the rest of the Bengals?
Yeah, it would elevate the offense for sure. Yeah. I think that if we're being honest, if the Bengals are without Jamar Chase, without Joe Mixon, I still like the offense, but Tennessee's a pretty solid defense. They can kind of complicate things. I think that's partially why in the back of my head I'm a little bit lower on P. Ryan is I'm not expecting Chase to be at full health. I'm pretty sure your numbers don't like the Titans defense as much as sort of
because
consensus.
I focus more on early down EPA. Like I weed out the late down stuff. They're very good on late downs because they create chaos, but you got to get to the late down first. And
do you know a quarterback who can kind of invite more chaos than he probably should?
You know, a quarterback who can move the sticks on first and second down. Just asking.
I think it's a yes to both with Joe Burrow here. So
it's volatile, but volatility is good.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean I want to prioritize a back with a more volatile situation.
I don't care. I will. Okay. I think that Chase elevates the offense. He would increase the chance that game shoots out, which I think is enticing for Treylon Burks, for Derrick Henry. So it'd be a benefit. If he doesn't play, I'll still probably be into some mini stacks here, like T. Higgins, Samaje P. Ryan, Treylon Burks, Derrick Henry. Fine with all those guys. So I'll probably be here regardless, but Chase would elevate it for sure.
I do think in P. Ryan's favor, the P. Ryan Burks stack is very helpful.
Yes. Sorry, I had to think for a second.
I thought you froze because you were so
I did hold my mouth open for a second. We don't know yet if Justin Fields will play this week. He suffered a left shoulder injury in week 11, facing off with Mike White and the New York Jets. The fighting Mike Whites. That spread moved to 5.5 the second the Jets announced that they were going to bench Wilson, but then went back to 4.5. So it seems like people realized it's still Mike White. You know, we can get excited about the benching, but it's still Mike White. What's your interest level in this game with all the moving pieces at quarterback?
0.
No, like Garrett Wilson with the quarterback change, nothing like that.
I don't think I need to. We're leave it to us to fight over great like strong value running backs. But we have 4 that I can realistically play. I don't think I need to take a chance on Garrett Wilson with Mike White at 6,000. I think his role will still be good.
Yeah.
I just don't anticipate really building around too many receivers in that range.
Yeah.
And I guess if I'm there, I'm going to go Burks over Wilson.
Agreed.
I
would also note there's some pretty high potential for wins in this game. Looks like 15-mile-per-hour winds. That hurts Garrett Wilson as well. So
what else is new?
I know.
Everyone's got wind.
No, not Tennessee. Nashville's looking around 9 miles per hour. I'm talking to Samaje Perine as being a lock button play.
Any Wilson for you?
I wouldn't be shocked if I have some, but I'm not actively seeking him out, which means if I have any, it'll be because I need to lower my Burks exposure.
Do you anticipate this game going over?
No, don't care. I don't think it. Like, I think that the only guy I'd consider is Garrett Wilson.
Right. I'm saying
not with the
these teams combined for 40 points.
Yeah.
Assuming Fields is out.
Well, it's a touchdown Trevor revenge game then, though.
Well, I get like even if Fields plays, it does not seem like they're not going to run him.
They're not going to run him. That defense is sick. I don't really have interest in Fields if he plays.
Right.
So, yeah, I agree. Also, I have Jets -4, so let's go, Mike. The Broncos released Melvin Gordon this week. They will be without Chase Edmonds as well. He is on IR with an ankle injury. They've got Latavius Murray, Marlon Mack in the practice squad, Divine Ozigbo. Remember that name? He's in the practice squad too. Bad offense, as we are well aware. Total is up to 36.5. Are you going Latavius Murray with a salary of $6,200?
I am not.
We can move on.
Okay.
The Panthers will start Sam Darnold against the Broncos. Does it matter?
No, it does not.
I agree. Matthew Stafford is in concussion protocol again, meaning I don't think he should play. Probably will not play this week. John Wolford also banged up, so Bryce Perkins would potentially start. He's a fun runner, fun preseason guy. The team released Darrell Henderson after he barely played last week, so likely a backup quarterback. Is that plus the hideous offensive line enough to keep you off of Kyron Williams at $5,300?
It's tempting because it's tempting because in a vacuum.
I'm going to question that. Is it tempting?
In a vacuum, if we saw ostensibly a starting running back with, some juice, some ability to get targets and run routes at 5,300 in a game where they should trail against the Chiefs, almost seems guaranteed that they'll be playing from behind. That sounds appealing until you realize that we have at least 4 backs in the sub 6,500 range that are much better plays. So yeah. I want to say I can consider it still. I would probably be more open to it if there were no value backs, but with the 4 that we're already discussing, I can't get the Williams in this offense. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw another 40-3 game here this week.
So their implied total is 14.75. Their implied win odds are 12.5%. Seems bad.
How are you in a game with a total of 44 and your total is under 15 points?
I want to see here.
You're 14.5 point underdogs, I guess is how, but
quickly. My numbers, typically my numbers are going to be higher on big underdogs because that's the way things typically work from a modeling perspective. I think the Rams money line is actually overvalued at 7-1. So I'm not doing it. Mike Williams may have a shot to go this week despite aggravating his ankle injury on Sunday night. He left after just a couple of series or snaps, I should say. Keenan Allen is fully back, though. That's good. We'll talk about the Chargers in the bookmaker section. We don't yet know the status of Kyler Murray as he deals with his hamstring injury. Colt McCoy got pulled in week 11, but would likely start if Murray can't go. The Cardinals could get Marquise Brown back this week. Rondale Moore dealing with a groin injury. He seems unlikely to play. Greg Dortch getting an MRI on his thumb after he injured that in Mexico City. We'll talk about them in the bookmakers section. The Chiefs, we don't know the status of Juju Smith-Schuster yet because he is in concussion protocol, but Kadarius Toney dealing with a hamstring injury. Of course, Mecole Hardman is on IR. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has a high ankle sprain. He's not going to play. We'll talk about the Chiefs in the trend section. The Falcons placed Kyle Pitts on IR where they tore an MCL. They're facing Washington. Very good rush defense. Does a Pitts injury combined with Washington's rush defense open up enough volume for you to consider Drake London at $6,100?
So I knew we were going to talk about him to end this section, and I wanted to ask like Garrett Wilson or Drake London. I'd go Drake London there. I think that the Washington offense is kind of, decent in terms of what they can give us, especially with Gibson. But Curtis Samuel, I think, is probably a bit over salary at 65, but he's still getting rushing work. And I love Terry. What's that?
Red zone rushing work.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Like, I don't mind Terry in a vacuum. 75 is a bit much with like Lockett and Keenan and DK under him. I could justify like mini stacks, but I think the most realistic outcome for London is that he still gets like six targets at most because they just spread things around on the very limited passing that they have. So I think that London is going to be one of the optimizer loves that makes sense on paper, but not necessarily in practice.
I agree that I prefer London over Wilson. Better quarterback play. We can talk about Marcus Mariota, but he's not Mike White.
Right.
So better quarterback play, more likely to have a legit role in the offense because like they could always go to Corey Davis, Elijah Moore. They could just run the ball a lot. So
more likely to be in a fun game.
I think both these games suck. I don't think the likelihood of either game being fun
more likely.
No, equal. It's 0 for both. There's no shot either these games is watchable. The problem is like, so on covering the spread, we'll talk about like
what I say is this game is better than Bears Jets, and Jim says no, it's equally bad.
Yeah, they're both equal. Actually, they're not.
Get out of here.
I lied.
Get out of here.
I looked at projected efficiency, and this one is a lot worse. Or the Jets game's a lot worse. So
I bet.
Sorry. You're right. Okay. Okay. Let's dig into the bookmaker section for this week. Highest total, or time for the highest total, is in Arizona for the Chargers and Cardinals. That's at 47.5. Chargers are 4.5-point favorites. Not sure at Kyler Murray yet. A lot of moving pieces on the Cardinals side, but the Chargers have some dudes. We can probably get to Austin Eckler this week, which I think is intriguing, given that his role is a lot better. How does this game grade out for you in terms of stacking?
Two teams that generally feel like
Trappy.
Optimal stacks, but then end up being sort of traps.
Yeah.
This one's a bit hard because we don't know the status of Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, or the quarterback, which I guess I probably should have let off with, but the fact that I didn't is probably a bit telling. DeAndre Hopkins' salary of $8,400 is a bit difficult. So I think that he's like relegated to game stacks only. I didn't quite see enough. I don't think I saw enough from Trey McBride to go there either. So I'm kind of down to like just Hopkins for the Cardinals as it stands now without like the knowledge of which receivers are going to be healthy. That feels kind of bad. So it makes it hard to say that I love to stack this game.
But you wouldn't be on Dortch. Like, let's say Dortch gets cleared from the thumb thing and Marquise Brown also plays. Would you be off Dortch at 49?
I wouldn't like prioritize him.
Because 49 is low.
It is, but again, do I need?
I know, but like,
to go down at receiver.
So as much as I like the value running backs, the stud running backs are pretty good too.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to turn down Austin Eckler, Kenneth Walker III, Derrick Henry. I'll probably turn down Christian McCaffrey, but like, I'm not going to say no if I can get it via bankable production. And Dortch, even if there's Hollywood there, I think he's at least like in play.
Yeah. I think like a Dortch Eckler stack is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Where are you on Eckler relative to the higher salary backs? I mentioned Henry. We've got Jacobs up there. Big Ken runner. I feel like for me, I'm at the point where I prefer Walker. I prefer Henry. And then I'd probably put Eckler above Jacobs, but I'm not sure I should. So although I'm higher on Eckler than I have been, I'm also not sure I'll get there, which feels bad.
I probably should be higher. The red zone roll's still good.
Yeah, it's really good now.
It's really good. One thing that was a little bit strange was the pass catching. I know they got Keenan Allen back, but I don't think it's like because there's Keenan Allen back, you can't throw to Eckler.
Right.
Still ran about just under half the routes.
Yeah.
Just the 2 targets last week. So again, it's like not a perfect role, but there's still the building blocks within that with the red zone work, the route rate to have a big game. So I'm not going to relegate Eckler to game stacks only, but I don't think I'm quite going to be there in like a single lineup. I don't know if it's a mistake to have Walker over him, but I currently do.
I do too.
So I like his game. Like I like this game a decent amount. The hard part is, again, we don't have a whole lot of clarity with what's going to happen with the Cardinals.
Eckler versus ETN. Big salary difference, so consider salary as well.
Well, that's a tough one. I love ETN, but I'd probably go Eckler because he can score. I can see him scoring multiple times quite easily in this matchup.
ETN has a 49% red zone share as the lead back. So, and I think that game goes over. So, I don't know. I like Eckler more, but there are a lot of good options up there. I think that's the big takeaway for me.
Yeah, it's like a 7-point gap in implied team total difference, though. I would assume that there's just more touchdowns for the Chargers.
Okay, you can assume that, but when the Jags win by scoring 38 points, you can run back crying. I'm gonna clip this.
The Jags and Ravens has to be like your all-time buy low game.
Yeah. It's an awesome game. What do you mean? It's the best game of all time.
I've heard a lot from you about how the Ravens are going to explode.
Oh yeah.
I feel like the Jaguars are in that.
I've been talking about, I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to bet the Ravens. Like, I love the Ravens. My numbers love the Ravens. They're underrated because of the schedule they faced. And then I bet the Jags money line this week. So like, I love both sides, man. I want to tie 50-50. 50-50. That means they don't score in overtime. 56-50. Someone scores an OT, preferably Jags for my money line ticket. But like, let's ride, man.
All right.
Jaguars country. Let's ride.
First.
Herbert, yes or no?
Yes, currently.
Yeah.
I think honestly quarterback is it might be the most difficult position early on in the week.
I agree with that. Maybe tight end.
Tight end's not as hard because
we have options, I guess. I just don't know how I want to rank them.
Yeah, I guess it's the same as quarterback, where I don't know how to rank these guys just yet.
Yeah. I do like Tua. I like Lamar.
Yes.
I probably won't be able to talk you into Geno, but I think Geno's fine. Burrow, from if this game winds up going overlooked perspective, is really fun. Yeah. Also, they just said that Jamar Chase they expect him to play. So that helps Burrow too.
Yes.
Did I actually? Yeah, I did. Okay, cool. Yes. Okay. Other 47.5 point total is the Seahawks and the Raiders. And that's at 47.5. The Seahawks are favored by 3.5. There are 4 different Seahawks. Well, 3 Seahawks I love. One I will try to talk you into at some point. 2 Raiders grade out pretty well, with 2 more at least somewhat viable. Am I dumb for loving this game too?
No, I like this game.
Okay.
How many quarterbacks for you in this game?
Half.
Okay.
Because Geno is a maybe. So it's a half quarterback game.
Okay. I think that's fair. I think this is like ripe for mini stacks, all different types of ways. With the receivers and running backs. No tight ends. I'm kind of done with Foster Moreau, but
probably, yeah.
I mean, any combination I can get of the running backs and receivers, I'm pretty much good with. I don't know if that's too simple, but I don't think it needs to be too complicated because these are some of the best market shares we have in football.
Yeah. I think this game is so the fun thing about this game is typically I have a hard time getting to the Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp kind of guys because I want to spend it at running back and they're always too high salary to get there. I can get there this week and Devontae's in a really good spot.
Yeah.
So that means like game stacks are even more enticing because I can include the good aspects of this game. Josh Jacobs too, I can get there as well. So I think that what I want to do is actively get to at least mini stacks of this game. Like make a conscious effort to have DK paired with Devontae. That does mean, I'll have to make some, maybe I have to lower my exposure to Derrick Henry, something like that. But I want to actively try. I'm squeezing in game stacks here just because it is a fun game. My numbers have this projected as the highest game-wide offensive efficiency for the entire main slate, in part because the Chiefs are facing a really bad offense. Dolphins are facing a really bad offense. Those individual teams will be very good and grade out better than both these teams. But like from a potential game stacking perspective, it is pretty fun. So I do like this game quite a bit, and I can get there as well.
Yeah, I think a fun stack is Josh Jacobs with Kenneth Walker.
Yeah,
it's not the kind of stack that people think of first. We have numerous value backs, but and this can only work with one value back, but like just because we have value backs available doesn't mean we have to play 3 of them in every lineup.
Exactly.
You can play.
I think I want to actively make sure I don't use 3.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure I'm getting enough exposure to the stud running backs as well. So a maximum of 2, minimum of 1.
Yeah, I think that's where I am as well.
Okay. Who do you prefer between DK and Lockett?
DK always. His market shares are better. The downfield work or the red zone work is a lot better for him. So he's my preference.
And preference between Jacobs and Walker. I know you said both, but like I agree with that. But preference between the two as a standalone play.
Walker trusts his quarterback a lot more.
I agree with you on all accounts there as well. So let's move now to the third game. It's the Jags and the Ravens. Ravens are 4-point favorites here. Total is down to 43.5. That went down 2 points from Monday. Why?
Jim is livid.
Just curious. I'm just asking questions, Brandon. Just asking questions. Both these teams have top 12 offenses by my schedule adjusted 2022 only numbers. Those numbers say the Jags can keep this game close. Again, I did bet their money line plus 172. Does not move to my favor at all. It's stayed steady 172, but we're keeping the faith. We'll check back on wind later. It's currently 10 miles per hour, which is fine, but I'm worried it might get higher. If that's all clear, where are you at in this game?
Yeah, I like this one as both mini stacks, but also stacks with. I don't know if I can quite get to Lawrence.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So it's a 1 quarterback game for me.
Agreed.
I think that Mark Andrews is a really fun pivot because he hasn't really put up the numbers in quite some time. I'm not saying he's going to be some off the wall play that nobody thinks of. It's not that. It's just if you look at the game log, it hasn't really been there. There's more to it than that with how good his workload is. Kelsey coming off of, yet another slate altering type of performance.
Yeah.
You got 2 30-point games this year. Yeah.
They were both on island games.
Yeah.
And then he was on the main slate the next week. So it's like, okay, well.
Yeah. So
there's that.
The salary's up there, but the research I've done shows that like stud pivots at tight end are great plays. So love Andrews. We can talk about the receivers here. My heart, like the hardest part is getting access to like numerous receivers in this game. I feel like it's kind of these two teams specifically have one key pass catcher and then other guys who tempt us, but are really hard to bank on. So they're game stacks only.
Yeah, I agree with the receiver part of it. Because like Kirk's salary is very high. That's tough to get to. With Andrews, I think that there are 3 tight ends I feel like decent about this week. Those guys being Travis Kelce, of course. Taysom Hill for me. I don't mind if you want to say no to that. That's okay. I can't blame you. And then I think Andrews is third. I don't know if they're in that order necessarily, but I think that all three of those guys are like legitimately good options this week. So I think that's going to keep a lid on how popular we'll see Andrews get. And I think that that's encouraging for the reasons you discussed. $7,300, still tremendous market shares in the games without Rashad Bateman, playing with a quarterback I still have a lot of faith in. So Andrews, great quarterback option or great tight end option. I love Lamar. I like ETN a lot. ETN's my favorite bring back option relative to salary. I'm fully off Zay Jones and Marvin Jones. I'd had a kick with that and I'm done. I can't do that anymore. So that's the one aspect where I'm good being, we'll see you. Talk to you next year, maybe. But a Lamar Andrews ETN stack is firmly in consideration for if I had like one single entry lineup, that would be on the table for me.
Yeah, the rare QBTE opposing RB stack. But I think that's the best way to do it.
And then I have a receiver game stack with either Burks and Chase, Burks Higgins, or a Devontae DK. We'll just build it right now. Build it on the fly.
Yeah, but again, I think Kirk is this, like, the role's great, the salary a bit much. Talk to me about the Marcus Robinson though.
He's like okay. I wish the salary had a 5 in front of it.
Right.
That's my primary issue. So let's say I have 10 Lamar lineups. I'm probably going 7 Andrews, 3 Robinson, and nobody else. I think that's probably where I'd go. What about you?
I think that's fair. The salary, while not low, is still low enough that if he's just okay, you can kind of overcome it, assuming that Lamar does what you rostered him, assuming he would do. My issue, and this is like probably not fair, but I have a hard time with the Ravens because you can trust Mark Andrews, and then we'll see guys pop, and then they change their game plan the next week, and it's not necessarily predictable. So again, Robinson, I like the game. I would mini stack him if possible. But outside of that, like, I don't think he's very good at his salary to the point that I play him in a single entry, like, without a game stack component to this.
Right. Because without game stacks, you're assuming the guy has like a really good ceiling by himself. And I don't think, like, as much as I've come around on him, I don't think he has that ceiling like by himself. So game stacks only. I'm very okay with that. I will include it in game stacks. But I think the fact this game is kind of narrow is encouraging because I can pepper that Lamar Andrews like combo and feel pretty good about that. I think that's encouraging for me.
Yeah, you do want games that are narrow. Sometimes I say that a game is too narrow, which means that I just like I'll place the obvious stacks, but I want to make sure that I'm not getting out over my skis with the like tertiary sort of options that just don't necessarily, they're not as good at plays if I didn't like the game as much.
Exactly. That's a Robinson, that's a Marv, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dig into our trends discussion for this week. And trends I think are better this week because there are more relevant offenses we didn't touch on during the bookmaker section. That begins with the team that lit it up on Monday, the San Francisco 49ers. They've had Christian McCaffrey for now 3 games. 2 of those were with Debo. You're going to dig into this offense with McCaffrey in the mix. What do you see when you look at that data?
Yeah, so 3 games with McCaffrey, played under 30% of the snaps in his debut, but has since played 81%, 64%, 65% in the 3 most recent games that I'm looking at here. Despite what you would consider for McCaffrey, like a fairly limited snap rate, he's averaged over 110 scrimmage yards per game on 13 carries and over 7 targets per game, which is over 27 adjusted opportunities, which for us is carries plus double your targets. So great workload, even though the snap rate itself, if you looked at it, a little bit concerning, especially in the 2 most recent games. He has 42% of the red zone rushing share, 36% overall of the red zone opportunities in that 3-game split. Debo Samuel and Elijah Mitchell have been back for the past 2 games, and those are when we saw the snap rate scale back a bit. Part of that, though, too, you could maybe attribute to the blowout on Monday night. So there's a lot of extrapolation here Point being, McCaffrey still good in any split, even on somewhat limited volume. 91.5 yards per game from scrimmage in those two. Again, despite the blowout that should have elevated him even more. So it's a tempting role. We know how good the talent is. I don't love this game overall, and this salary is really high for McCaffrey at 92. So I think he is a great tournament play because the process is imperfect. But if he plays 75% of the snaps and that game stays close, he can go for 150 scrimmage yards and a touchdown or more. And it shouldn't surprise us based on what's like under the surface with his workload. Overall, in the two games with McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, and Debo active together, Debo does pace the team with a 26% target share. The ADOT's only 4.2 yards, but he has 25% of the red zone targets. He's also averaging 3.5 carries in this split for 32 yards per game. And his catch rate over expectation is a minus 12.4%. I think that there's a lot of greatness with Debo this week that is just has him under salary at 6,900. So I love Debo this week. McCaffrey's actually second in target share at 23%. Again, I think he's a good play, but not necessarily like a cash game or head-to-head game play. Brandon Ayuk, 19% target share, 30% air yard share. A lot of red zone work, 38%. I think he's just over salaried though with Debo at 200 more. I don't really know how I can justify Ayuk because I'm not going to play Garoppolo. And if I was, in theory, I would build the lineup with Debo and then pivot and plug in Ayuk. But I don't think that's the right play this week. So I don't see how I'm going to get to Ayuk very much. George Kittle, pretty distant fourth in target share at 14%. At 6,200, he has appeal, 13% red zone share though. Don't love that, and kind of created his touchdowns, his touchdown opportunities. So, it's maybe not as bad of a matchup as it might seem with the Saints. I don't know where your numbers have the Saints defensively. They're about average, give or take, according to numberFire's adjusted metrics. So it's a bit of a beatable matchup. I think that Debo is the best play by far. I think McCaffrey makes sense. If I were stacking this game, like if we get on Alvin Kamara, I could see just bringing it back in hopes that it's a bit of a higher scoring game. But ultimately, what this tells me is that I love Debo this week.
Yeah, I think Debo's under salaried. My numbers had the Saints 23rd. So that's not great. Their defense 23rd.
Yeah.
The issue that I have with McCaffrey is that, like, if it's a neutral script, that means their offense is not clicking. If it's a positive script, he's going to lose that work because they want to save him for the playoffs. We've seen that twice now. Like, I guess in that Chargers game, like, it was pretty neutral script, and he still lost a lot of work to Eli Mitchell. The Cardinals game, he played a lot in the first half, which I thought was very encouraging. But then they got out too far ahead, which is also in the realm of possibilities this week. I am probably not going to have any McCaffrey, as bad as that feels.
Yeah.
Just like the workload is like, it's good, but it's not 92 good. $9,200 on FanDuel good.
Yeah.
When I can use Henry, I can use Big Ken Runner. I can use Jacobs, Eckler, stuff like that. ETN, a value back. It's hard to get there. Debo, fine with. Yeah, I think that he's definitely on the menu, and I'm okay with that because he's outside a lot, or he's like playing actual receiver a lot more, which means his target share, as you alluded to, has been better. So I think Debo makes a lot of sense, but he might be the only 49er I use for this week.
Yeah, I think I'm there. If we didn't have as much value, I would play more Alvin Kamara.
Sure.
And then I would just force in more like George Kittle because I wouldn't want to play just Debo and Kamara together in all of those stacks. But as standalone plays, I think this team just has too many mouths to feed in a sense, and they're not necessarily good enough to give everyone enough work. But Debo is the one in particular who's just his salary's too low.
Yeah, and even Debo, like, there are guys around there I like Keenan 73.
Yeah,
that is $40 matters a lot, but like DK is there. I prefer DK and Keenan over Debo personally. It's okay to disagree. Juju 66 as well if he gets cleared.
So we are going to have a gadget showdown between Taysom Hill and Debo Samuel though. So
just stack them.
Yeah.
the gadget stack. Also, a Hill stack is in play this week. Tyreek Hill, Taysom Hill, Ryan Tannehill. It's in play. Tannehill probably not, but the Hill stack's in play.
They're not even in the same game.
It's a name stack. It doesn't have to be in the same game. What are you talking about?
Get out of here, man. If I mentioned playing Ryan Tannehill, you would quit the show.
I didn't mention playing him. I mentioned it as a joke.
Was it a joke?
Yeah, I'm not actually going to use Ryan Tannehill. I'm not a moron, usually.
Well, you did send me a lineup with those three in it. So
yeah, because of the name stack. I am dedicated to the name stack, which is why I'm going to talk about Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins for my first trend. The Dolphins, massive implied total for this week, 28.5 points. Only problem is that they're pretty heavy favorites, and my numbers say that spread may be a bit too light at 13 points. I don't think it's a huge issue, though. The Dolphins have run 94 plays this year while leading by 8 or more points. Their pass rate, while leading by 8+, is 57.4%. The Bears are like 20 percentage points below that overall, which is nuts. I mean, that I made it up, but it's nuts how pass heavy the Dolphins are in these situations. League average when leading by 8+ is 46%. The Rams are the only team that has run at least 20 plays while leading by 8 or more points to have a higher pass rate. The shocker here is the Rams have been leading by 8+ points more than 20 plays. It's been like 68. So there is a surprise there. Even if we reduce that to just the second half, which it would matter more, in the second half, leading by 8+ points, the Dolphins have a 51% pass rate across 72 plays. The only team higher than them with a significant sample is the Bills at 52%. The Dolphins have won by 10+ points twice this year. Tua Tagovailoa, 33 and 32 pass attempts in those games. Tyreek Hill, 12 and 6 targets. Jalen Waddle has had 5 in both, which is disappointing, but it's enough for us to get by with how good those guys are. I think Tua is very in play at his salary, despite the spread. The receivers, fully justifiable. I'm also down to clown with Jeff Wilson. Salary is high at 77, but took over the lead back role before their bye. 143 yards in scrimmage in that game against a bad Browns defense, but the Texans stink too. 17 carries, 5 targets. So typically I want to shy away from teams with a big spread, but I don't think I will here. I think that they're good enough to, they're aggressive enough to keep their foot on the gas. So how are you viewing the Dolphins offense against the Texans?
Yeah, so I have whenever Miami is up by at least 8, their pass rate over expectation up plus 13, which you love to see. That's top 3 in the NFL. Yeah, blowouts are always hard to navigate because yes, they can lead to scaled back volume, but specifically with quarterback, you need efficiency. Volume alone is not how you score points at quarterback, especially if you don't run. Tua, can scramble here and there, but he's not going to run the ball. So I could see a 30 attempt game even, but just elevated efficiency, and to get Tua there and make him one of the best quarterback plays of the week. The bigger question I think for me is Tyreek, because an efficient 7-target game might not be enough to burn me at 92. I think I need a little bit more appeal for Houston to bring it back, for Tyreek to push for 10+ targets. I know you said he had 12 and 6 in the 2 double-digit wins.
Yeah, so if we look at the games where he's had, let's look at less than 12 targets, because every game he's had double digits, he's hit 12.
Yeah.
So the games where he's had less than 12, 33 yards, 47 yards, 143 yards, and 44.
Yeah.
So a lower passing volume game reduces the odds he kills you for not using him.
That's my biggest fear. If he were 82, let's say, it was accounted for the fact that this might be a blowout, I'd say he could get there. 92 is really difficult. And then you have to come in and ask Tyreek or Derrick Henry, or Tyreek versus Eckler or something like that. I think that gets a little bit more complicated. Now, again, if I felt like the Texans could bring it back, if I even felt like I could bring it back with anybody, but we saw them get blown out last week. Dameon Pierce was reduced to rubble. That's my main fear. Despite all that, I still might have Tua as like my main quarterback play.
Yeah.
Because I don't see how he escapes this game. Because like worst case is Houston keeps it close, and so Tua is throwing more, which over even a full game, he's going to be efficient enough with these receivers. So it's hard to envision how Tua doesn't get there. I just don't know if there's enough for the skill players to pop off.
What about Jeff Wilson? 77 is high. He's right by ETN. I'm kind of surprised by high salaried he was. I thought, okay, he'll be 7,000 and I'll have a lot.
Yeah.
77 is a tougher question. I think I want to have him as a rotational piece, so like 30 to 40% for me. But I can't go above that. I also want to make sure I get some, though. Where are you at on him?
Lower than ETN.
Agree.
Like, man, it's tough because look,
I feel like I kind of want to let game stacks influence my exposure this week. Like, okay, here I have a Tua Tyreek team, and I'm going to signify this one is a Raiders Seahawks game stack. Go from there. I think I kind of want to let it be that way more so than like, okay, I feel great. Like, because like I think they're all kind of in the same tier, so just make your lineups as game stacky as possible and let that kind of dictate where you go.
So where does that put you on Wilson then?
Well, he's the exception because I can't stack.
Right. Like, and
but I still want to make sure I get him in there. Like, oh, I assume the Dolphins roll.
Yeah. But even in those stacks, you are not forcing it with the Texans. Or sorry, not in Wilson lineups, not stacks. You're not forcing it.
I will not have a single Texan on any roster for the rest of my life.
Okay.
Like you're from the state of Texas, not my roster. Hashtag not my roster. Where's Gino from? Hometown. Geno Smith is from Georgia. Okay, we're good. Yeah, I'm going to stand fast with no Texan will be on my roster.
Love it.
Okay, similar trend for your second trend, talking about the Chiefs while leading, because they're in a very similar setup to the Dolphins. Tougher matchup, but not an unexploitable one. What are you seeing with this Chiefs offense?
Yeah, so similar because I think Mahomes is like a can't fail play because again, if like the Rams keep it close somehow, he's going to be on the field and throwing, and over the long term, that's going to pay off. But if they do cash in on being big favorites, probably not going to necessarily just going to be on the ground. So I think that Mahomes is really appealing. But yeah, 14.5 point spread, you don't typically love to see it. But I think their main path for the Rams to keep this one close is by being able to run on the Chiefs because the Chiefs will let you do that. That just the Rams can't run the ball. So it feels like this one's just destined to be a blowout. But The Chiefs lead the NFL in pass rate over expectation at a plus 12.4%. They're the only team in double digits currently since the Bills kind of fell off in recent weeks. They double up all teams but one for the full season. Went up by at least 8. The Chiefs have a pass rate over expectation of plus 11.4%. A raw pass rate of 52%. They just, they run plays with leads. We did see the Chiefs go a bit run heavy in week 11 against the Chargers, but again, you can run on the Chargers. The Chiefs were really light with pass catchers. They lost Kadarius Toney in game that has to impact the game plan, but I don't really see how this team goes super run heavy in this spot. I don't think they need to. Last week without Juju Smith-Schuster, we saw Travis Kelce lead with 10 targets, which was 32%, 3 touchdowns, of course. Sky Moore was next with a 19% target share on a 40% route rate. Don't love that to be as sticky because you want the route rate to be higher. Justin Watson and Marquez Valdes-Scantling had a 13% target share. Notably, though, Watson had a 97% route rate, which is not nothing. He's kind of a fun player. I think that's appealing if there's no Juju. We don't have a good sample of this team without both Juju Smith-Schuster and Mecole Hardman because Juju left early in week 10. But in that game, Jerick McKinnon, 23% target share, Kelce 20%. Tony was at 14%, but now hurt. MVS 11%. So look, we can go at Kelsey as much as we can stomach it, as much as we can actually get there. Really, no salary's too high for him. But like Sky Moore at 54, Watson at 5,000, I think can give us salary relief for whenever we do want to play Patrick Mahomes. If Juju plays, he would be a love for me at 66.
Yeah.
How high are you on the Chiefs? And specifically, how do you view them compared to the Dolphins? Because they're pretty similar this week.
I prefer the Dolphins because they're facing a worse team, but the spread is like the same. So like they can get the same amount of pushback, but a softer defense on the opposing side. So I prefer the Dolphins. With that said, the Chiefs' salaries are pretty affordable. I agree with you where Juju would be a love if he were good to go. The only different take I have is on Watson, because if we get a situation where they're down Tony and Juju, his routes will stay the same. He's not a big target earner. He has earned a target on 16% of his routes so far this year, whereas Sky Moore is at 21%. So an increase in routes is more impactful for Sky Moore than Justin Watson. Moore is at 1.7 yards per route run, Watson 1.5. So I'd rather go to Sky Moore by a pretty decent margin over Watson. I don't know if I'll get to Watson at all, honestly. But I can get to Sky Moore if there's no Juju. If there's Juju, I feel like you have two target earners out there in Kelsey and Juju. That makes it tougher for Moore to separate from the pack. So I think for me, I agree with you. Watson's actually a pretty interesting player. I think he's fun. He's athletic. He's an interesting player. I just don't know if I'll get there because he's not going to get a role change necessarily, whereas Sky Moore will get a role change if those guys are out.
Yeah, I mean, to clarify, I love Sky Moore.
Yeah, you liked him a lot, in the draft. So yeah,
yeah, and I prefer him to Watson. I just saying Watson also is relevant if you're okay, taking a chance on someone who has a very, very low floor, but could, open up a lot of 5,000 for someone who's going to run, 90+% of the routes.
Yeah. One question for you. Does your view of the Texans offense change with Kyle Allen just being named the starter for the Texans offense?
It can't get worse, right?
I don't think it'll get any better, but
I think it's gonna get better, but
yeah, I think no.
I don't know.
Just had to ask. I didn't really have to ask, I should say, but figured I would. Okay. So we're on the Chiefs. Their salary is very affordable, even like the studs and Mahomes and Kelsey we can get to this week. Oh, Pacheco. Forgot to ask you.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, are you trying to get to Kelsey in your single entry lineup, like your main lineup?
No.
Okay.
It's not because I dislike Kelsey. It's because I really like Andrews and really like Taysom, and I think they'll be a lower roster than Kelsey.
Yeah.
So it's not an anti-Kelsey thing. It's a pro Andrews Hill thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right, now Pacheco.
I think I like him more than Rachaad White. Is that bad?
I don't think it's bad.
It might be bad. Because the reason I like him is because I have, and this is a dumb thought process. I'm telling you again, do as I say, not as I do. I keep thinking back to Alvin Kamara's rookie year where they had Adrian Peterson, cut him, and that trimmed the backfield from 3 guys to 2. In the 2 weeks they played with CEH basically not playing, Pacheco has had 100 yards in one game and I think 80 something in the second game. Hasn't had any targets, but he has been running routes. And we know how pass heavy the Chiefs are on early downs. So even if Pacheco just plays early downs, he's probably going to stumble into some passing game work. He did have a wheel route that he ran on Sunday night. So that's in his bag of tricks.
10 routes on Sunday, and McKinnon was at 15. So it's not like it was
right.
It's like he didn't run any routes.
Right. So I think Pacheco is very interesting. He's very trappy as well. So because White has a better matchup, I think his floor might be higher, but I think Pacheco, if there winds up being a big discrepancy between roster rates between those two guys, I think Pacheco would be pretty fun for tournaments.
I kind of coin flip them. I see
Okay.
the case for both. I mean, White started against Seattle. I don't think that they have any reason to ride Leonard Fournette.
Correct.
So
I'm honestly, are they the same? Because Lenny is just Jerick McKinnon except thicker.
well, like what? I mean, White had a 37% route rate in week 10.
True.
Leonard, Fournette I know was banged up, but
Yeah.
it's not like
He did lose some work to Keyshawn Vaughn.
that's a
like
last
some
ditch
routes.
effort. Look, as someone who also likes Keyshawn Vaughn, they don't want to play Keyshawn Vaughn. I know that.
They did.
They don't want to. They don't want to though.
They did it though.
But I think the Chiefs want to play Jerick McKinnon in passing game work. I think that they kind of had to play Keyshawn Vaughn in week 10 sometimes on 5 snaps.
Just saying. I like both.
Yeah, I like both too.
Okay. Let's move now to my second trend and talk about a game that I've alluded to a couple times. That's Titans Bengals. My numbers kind of like this game. I kind of like the over, and I'm not opposed. Not really going to push back on that. The Bengals side should be pretty obvious. They get Jamar Chase back. That benefits everyone in terms of efficiency, would reduce T. Higgins' target share, but we've seen him blow up in games with Chase before too. So who cares? Honestly, helps Mixon too because just a better offense. His target projection would go down, but I think they'd be sick. They're better than perception. I think the Titans are too. Tannehill's been back for 2 games now, and in those 2 games, the passing offense has exceeded expectations on early downs, passing by 0.20 and 0.28. That's a pretty wide margin above expectations. They've been
is that like per player? Is that success rate
per drop back?
Okay.
NEP per play.
Okay, gotcha.
NEP per drop back.
Well, you've been doing success rate stuff. I just was
because success rate on late downs.
Okay, but those numbers, if that's not expected points, is sick.
Yeah, it's sick. They've been 0.20 or better in 5 of 8 games that Tannehill has started this year. It's absurd. They're also an above average team on lay downs in terms of success rate. Neither defense here is one we really need to fear. The Bengals, 15th by my numbers. Tennessee is lower because they do struggle in early downs. They're very good in late downs, like one of the best teams in football in late downs, but not as good in early downs. So there is some shootout potential here. Pace is disappointing, which is keeping a little bit of lid on my enthusiasm, and that's not going to be enough to put me on Tannehill. I want to make that very clear. But I can get behind Treylon Burks. 22% target share in 2 games since he came back, 7 targets per game. He had 2 deep targets last week. He had a red zone target in both those games, turned last week's into 111 yards. The Bengals allowing the 5th highest ADOT in the league so far this year. Burks might be one of my favorite plays in the slate across any position at any salary. Also on Derrick Henry, he showed last week that the low snap rates were not really a cause for concern, just kind of guessing keeping him healthy, and he was awesome in that Packers game. We did the salary to get there via the value backs. I don't mind having both Burks and Henry in the same lineup either. I think that's totally fine for this team. So overall, I think this game is fun. It's super live for many stacks to the point where I actively want to seek them out in order to be different. Am I too high on this game?
I don't think so. I guess with the stacking component, now I'm going back to P. Ryan. I'd probably stack this game more frequently than I would like the Browns and Bucks.
Wind is very bad there.
So that would probably push my actual exposure level higher to P. Ryan than to Rachaad White.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to, look, usually we have an extra day to prepare for this, so do a lot more thinking. There's a bit more on the fly, but no, I think this is a good game. I think you can stack it in a lot of different ways. I think Burks is in the conversation for the best play at salary.
I agree.
He's got 2.76 yards per route run over the past 2 games, which is pretty disgusting. And that's with a 7.4 yard ADOT. Again, he can get downfield work. We've seen that, but he's like creating after the catch.
Which is what he did in college too. So it's not out of character.
Yeah. So like he was a slot guy in college. So
like it was weird because like he's huge, but they'd like Just give him like these little bunny targets and he just go bananas.
Yeah. So I think Burks, again, we mentioned that like floor is not real in DFS, but
The
like
floor is lava, as always.
he should be able to get both the downfield work and the short targets, which makes it his A dot kind of not a typical A dot. So
Correct.
I think Burks is great. I want to get to Derrick Henry. I don't know how often I'm going to be able to do it. I don't know if I'm going to play Henry outside of like I would need bringbacks if I'm going to play Derrick Henry. So I got to make sure I can do that. But another spot where Henry P. Ryan stacks, so stacking running backs.
Yeah.
Same as we saw with Las Vegas and Seattle. I think that's viable. So no, I don't think you're too high in this game at all.
Where are you on the Bengals now that we know Chase is not a lock to play, but more likely to play than we thought? Like, will you use Joe Burrow at $8,600?
I probably should consider it.
I agree.
He's got a 6 ceiling despite being just a pocket passer, but now that I'm looking at this, he's got
4 rushing touchdowns this year.
4 rushing touchdowns in the past 6 games, which not super sticky, but
yeah,
we know that he can torch pretty much any defense. I'll trust you and thinking that the Titans defense a bit overstated, but
like they're good, but
yeah,
they're not a void level.
I still at this point don't have an idea who my lock button quarterback is when I'm building a single lineup. It honestly might depend on the rest of my lineup. I always put in quarterback first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have a hard time doing that this week, but Burrow in the consideration, especially if we get Chase back and we find out that he's not just limited in practice like all week.
Yeah. Like if we get a Shefty tweet at 11:34 Saturday night saying that Chase is going to play, I'll use Burrow. I'm in. I think.
Where would he rank for you at quarterback?
Probably. Okay, so I'm gonna. Well, I'd probably still go with Lamar over him.
Yeah.
Is that dumb?
I don't think there's a right answer on Wednesday.
I think he'd be in the Tua tier. Well, but the same tier as Lamar, so I think he's in the top tier if we get him with Chase.
I think Mahomes is the only guy who I have in his own tier.
Okay, a little bit lower on Mahomes personally.
I know, because you're a hater, but it's all right.
I feel so bad that you would call me a Mahomes hater.
I'm just saying, man. I don't know. I have the salary to get there. This team just throws the ball. I'll talk into Mahomes by the end of it.
So last week, he had 329 passing yards, which was his lowest since October 10th.
He has no fewer than 235 in any game. He has 6 with 300 yards.
What an animal.
No fewer than 34 attempts in any game.
Yep.
The Rams don't generate pressure.
Yeah, they stink.
Mahomes from a clean pocket, 120.5 quarterback rating.
I'm shocked it's not higher, to be fully honest.
73% completion rate, 23 touchdowns, 3 picks, 0.46 EPA per drop back, which is 3 times the NFL average from a clean pocket.
How lucky are we get to watch this guy? Like, how lucky are we? This is great. Like, people complain about like having repeat teams in island games, which I understand, but I'm never going to complain about watching Patrick Mahomes. Like, it's annoying not to have him on a main slate, but like Sunday, I had a bad DFS day. It made my day so much better. I got to sit down and watch Patrick Mahomes play football. So I actually don't mind that much.
And like with the pass catcher injuries, like he's still just
he's
amazing.
Sick. Okay. We're not going to talk weather here. I will say though, early look is there is some pretty bad wind in a lot of East Coast games. Shocker. So I would recommend checking wind Sunday morning before you finalize your lineups to check on that because it does matter quite a bit. We saw that with Lamar last week. My sentiment on him changed entirely once I saw there was big wind there. So make sure you check back on wind to see how that may alter things. Let's now go position by position and break down our favorite plays for this week over on FanDuel. Starting off at quarterback with you, Brandon. Talk me into Sir Patrick.
Yeah, I basically just read off my notes here to you just now. But again, no fewer than 34 attempts in any game, 6 300-yard games. I have the Rams last in pressure rate according to Next Gen Stats. Mahomes, again, from a clean pocket, just incredible. I I have value at running back. There are a lot of different ways I can go with it, but look, you don't want to just like game log watch for performance, but look back through at Mahomes and really find me since week 3 like disappointing games from him. They don't really exist. This team is just so pass heavy that he's going to be efficient, and I'm good with it. I think that like in our head to head, I'm going to play Mahomes against you. I'm going to find a way to get there.
Okay.
My second love, kind of a toss up. I don't really have a firm take. I think Justin Herbert is appealing at 79. I don't know. That could be dumb. Is it dumb?
No.
Okay.
I just like the hesitancy. It makes me happy.
Well, look, I love Herbert. He's finally, the salary's back down under 8,000. Already lost Mike Williams just immediately, and Mike Williams' face on the sideline was my face because I was just waiting for Mike Williams to come back. But I think there's still a big ceiling in this game against the Cardinals on a short week. They're an average pass defense. That's good for Herbert. Arizona does kind of cap downfield passing, and Herbert started slinging it a bit more this past week, but he's already been working with a low ADOT for a lot of the season, still putting up 273 yards per game, 1.6 touchdowns. Keenan Allen, Eckler, they can get yards after the catch. Herbert can get some rushing. I think in game stacks, he's very fun. And so I think I'm kind of solidifying my take on Mahomes, where if I can't find a second guy that I absolutely adore, I must love Mahomes more than I realize.
That's fair. With Herbert, he has run more a bit the past 2 weeks too. Looks like the ribs fully healed, so that could be a good thing for him. I'm not as high on him, but I get why you're there. My first love is Tua Tagovailoa. The Dolphins still very pass heavy while leading, as we discussed. The efficiency here should be just bananas. There aren't a lot of high upside guys in the slate, but we've seen that from Tua this year. So $83, very fair. I don't have my typical. I know you're right. Sorry. Not a lot of high upside guys in competitive games on this slate.
No. Sorry. I made a face at something else down the list. What was that? What did you think that I made the face at?
That I said there weren't a lot of high upside quarterbacks in the slate.
There are, but we can nitpick every single one of them to a degree.
What'd you make a face at?
Like you don't have Samaje Perine in your loves, and I thought you were like gonna.
Because I don't know if Mixon's gonna play.
Fight me through the computer.
Because Mixon might play. I'm just saying, if Mixon doesn't play, I like Perine.
Okay, we'll get there.
What are you talking about?
I figured you just assume at that point.
These are not like, the loves are not like hypotheticals. If blah, 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 blah. These are like, oh yeah, I like this guy. I'm going to use Lamar Jackson, my second love at quarterback. I think this game is, as long as the win stays muted, which is, it's like okay right now. I think this game goes over 43.5. The passing offense of the Ravens has struggled, but they're 7th in early down passing efficiency so far. Mark Andrews, another week healthier. Hopefully developing better rapport with Demarcus Robinson with no Rashad Bateman. This Jags defense, the one we can exploit. Shish. I know. You were right about Demarcus Robinson.
Hey, it only took 7 years, baby.
Yeah, he finally had more than 50 yards in a game for the first time since like I was born. So yeah, I like Lamar this week. Hoping the win stays down. I want to go back to him because we know bananas games are within his range of outcomes.
I should like Lamar more than Herbert.
I agree. Let's go to running back. What you got there?
Kenneth Walker, 84. Vegas is kind of average in terms of rushing defense, but I have him 29th in adjusted FanDuel points per target allowed to running backs. Since taking over the lead role, 76% snap rate, 26.4 adjusted opportunities per game, almost 90% of the red zone rushes, which sounds wrong, but is sick. 106 yards per game from scrimmage, 0.63 rushing yards over expectation per carry. He's very good. I want non-quarterback access to that game. I'm not against Geno, but I just think that the salary's too close to the guys that I would rather rearrange my lineup.
Why not GS?
What?
Why not GS as opposed to Geno?
Well, I love Rashad White as well at 64. I have a note in here. I don't know what Jim's thinking. I like Perine if there's no Mixon. But Rashad White, very interesting. Started already in week 10 against Seattle. So I don't think it's just contingent on hyping up like Leonard Fournette being injured. White in that game, 22 carries, 105 yards on the ground, no targets, but a 37% route rate, 65% of snaps. Faces the Browns, who get torched on the ground by everyone. And, we see like post-bye rookie surges happen. I think that's what we're going to get from Rachaad White here. And my third love, Antonio Gibson. I know we've mentioned Treylon Burks being probably my favorite play, like at salary, but it's Antonio Gibson. I might have more Gibson than anyone. It was kind of trending toward like I would just lock button Gibson in. We have enough value backs where I might not do that, but he's my favorite of all the value plays. Showed a lot last week with a 2/3 snap rate while in positive script. The Falcons are 25th in success rate allowed to running backs, below average. In adjusted FanDuel points per target allowed to backs as well. Since week 9 with no McKissick, 14.3 carries, 3 targets, under 70 scrimmage yards per game, which I don't love, but the workload last week was a lot better. And 57% red zone rushing share last week. So I think that this is just a spot where I play a lot of Gibson. Maybe not as high as I was Monday, but still higher on him than the other guys.
Yeah, we got a question about Gibson on YouTube from William asking about, why him when he's sharing the backfield with Gibson or with Murray or with Robinson. I know I've gone through like 16 different guys. The reason is last week. Last week was huge for Gibson because, like you said, they were in a positive script and Gibson played 2/3 of the snaps. First half snap rate for Gibson was 71%. He played 29 of 41 plays. So when it was closer, he played 71% snap rate. In the second half, even when they were up for the entire game, 16 of 26 snaps. So 62% in the second half alone. You mentioned the red zone rush share. The red zone overall share, 4 out of 9 red zone chances went to Antonio Gibson. So that's why I'm super, super high on him. And I agree with what you said. And William was asking about Latavius Murray. Talking about touchdown equity there. I just don't expect the Broncos to score as many points as Washington. So that's the reason for there. So it's a good question. I would, if you had told me, William, last week that I would be talking up Antonio Gibson without a Robinson injury, I would have been like, you're nuts. Don't do this. But I think last week actually did tangibly change the way I view him. So that's the explanation there. My first level running back is ETN. I also do like Jeff Wilson in this range. I like Kenneth Walker. Sorry, Big Ken Runner. I like him a lot as well. But ETN is the best salaried piece in the Jags side of this game, and I want to stack it. Baltimore ranks 18th against the rush on early downs after adjusting for schedule. They're pretty good on late downs, but the Jags move the sticks before they get to 3rd and 4th down pretty often, which is fun. Huge fan of that.
I thought the goal as an offense was to get into 3rd and manageable.
That's what I heard. So the Jags giving double-barreled freedom rockets, double-barreled middle fingers to everyone who's trying to get 3rd and manageable. Everyone says that. 120 yards in scrimmage per game for ETN is the lead back with a 49% red zone share. I think his red zone role is underrated. So like that. What? Don't talk about how likely they are to get there. That game is going over. Jags scoring 38 points. When they scored their 38th point Sunday, apologize to me. Send me an apology tweet on Twitter.
I'll send you an apologize, Jim.
After they score the 38th point, not sure. Before, not after. After they score their 38th point.
Sure.
Thank you. Good. Okay. Other loves for me at running back. I do like Gibson. I want to talk about Rachaad White briefly. You talked about him too, but 22 carries, 105 yards in week 10. He should have a good early down role, even if Lenny does wind up being active. The Browns, as you mentioned, hideous against the rush. Freaking the Chargers were good against them as a rushing offense, and they're the worst rushing offense I've seen in my entire life, outside of like last year's Dolphins, I guess. But like the Dolphins ran on them this year too. So there's some win in this game, but I do like Rachaad White. I will mention Isaiah Pacheco as well. 95 yards per game in 2 games with minimal CEH. He's going to get some routes if he's playing early downs as well, just kind of naturally because of how pass heavy they are. $63. I think his most likely script is where they're ahead by a lot. So I actually do think he benefits from a positive script. So I like Pacheco. If I had to rank, go ahead.
Let's hypothetical. No Mixon. Mm-hmm. So we have P. Ryan available.
Sure.
What 3 running backs are you playing in your top lineup?
Likely Pacheco, likely Gibson, likely ETN.
Okay.
Because I'll probably have Lamar as my quarterback. and I'll have
Okay.
Etienne as a bring back, most
All right.
likely, if I had to guess. Receiver, what you got? Oh, actually, what are your three?
Good Gibson. Probably coin flip between White and Pacheco, and then Walker.
Okay, cool. P Ryan, I would still use quite a bit, but I probably wouldn't be on him in that specific lineup. I'd probably
In my
get
main
like
lineup, I don't think.
yeah, I'd probably get a Burks Bengals receiver stack if I can, but or maybe I'd go Burks P Ryan. I don't know. We'll see. Receiver, what you got there?
DK Metcalf. If I'm going to play, 1 to 2 value running backs, I need to make sure that my guys have upside. I love most weeks. I love like the 7,000 range at receiver because those are the guys who have tangible ceilings but don't hit them as often or haven't hit them recently as the guys with salaries in the 8 to 9,000 range. But Metcalf definitely has it. Excluding a game where he played just 25% of the snaps, he has a team high 27% target share, 40% air yard share. It's just a better overall workload than what Tyler Lockett has. 40% red zone share, 54% of the end zone targets as well. So I love Metcalf this week. I also love Deebo Samuel at 6,900. I think he's just under salaried. There is some potential for him to lose out on touchdowns just because only so many guys can score touchdowns in a single game. But 3.5 carries, 7.5 targets per game with McCaffrey and Mitchell both playing. So still getting rushing work even with both of those backs in the fold. Again, catch rate over expectation of minus 12.4% the past 2 games. So you can say what you want about the quarterback play. That's probably going to bump up because a lot of his targets are, shorter ADOT, 73 scrimmage yards per game. Had some cramping issues on Monday as well, which shouldn't last, but also probably capped some of his production and numbers there. And then third love, as expected, Treylon Burks, 5,900. Showed a lot last week, 8 targets, which was a 29.6% share, so round up to 30 on 21 routes, but that works out to a target per route rate of 38%. I dug back. There's been 27 games this season by a receiver with at least a 38% target per route rate from guys with at least 20 routes. So yeah, there are volume concerns, but A, he is getting targets when he's out there, and B, a lot of reason to expect him to run more routes, especially if that game is fun. So, mini buy as well, coming off of that Thursday game. So you think that the arrow's up for a rookie in Treylon Burks at 59.
Burks is my third love too for the reasons you mentioned. $5,900. I think this offense is pretty fun. I want to get exposure to that game. He's my favorite route for exposure there. I do want to get to Henry, but Burks is my favorite route. Unless we get P Ryan, I might go P Ryan over Burks, but I would just probably have a lot of both, to be fully honest. My first love is Devontae Adams because I've got the salary to get there for once, and I want to get there. I'd rank him above Tyreek Hill if you were going to ask about that. I prefer him over Tyreek. Devontae, 32% target share, 43% of the deep work, and 34% in the red zone for the full season. He's at 13.5 targets per game in 2 games without Waller and Renfro. The Seattle defense has played well at times this year, but not one I fear. So I can stack this game. I would like to, and I will, with Devontae Adams being a key part of that. Keenan Allen is my number 2 love. Came back to 8 targets on the snap count last week, 94 yards in that game. He had a huge target share before his injury in week 1 too. Like every play on their first drive went to Keenan Allen effectively. The Cardinals just lost their top cornerback due to injury. He comes in at $7,300. I've not always been a Keenan Allen guy. I will be for this week. I think Allen makes a lot of sense. So my 3, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, and Treylon Burks. I am firmly on team old or team rookie or GTFO for this week. Tight end. What you looking at there?
Obviously love Travis Kelce, but I think Mark Andrews is a great play at 7,300. A $900 gap between the two goes a long way. It's really hard to kind of build around like a Mahomes and Kelce stack unless you go with 2 value backs. So I think that naturally I'm going to be having a bit more Andrews and get exposure to other Chiefs. I will stack Pacheco and Mahomes and get access to a lot of the work. And then anything that McKinnon gets out of the backfield will just go to Mahomes. But Andrews has a 25% target share in his return last week. 4 downfield targets, Jaguars below average against tight ends. It's just a good process play to pivot to tight ends who are studs, who are not necessarily getting a ton of attention. I don't really love a whole lot of other tight ends aside from Kelce, Andrews, and you can talk more about Taysom Hill.
Will you have Kelsey or Andrews in your single entry?
Yeah, I'll find ways to get there.
Okay, cool.
It's hard for me to pass up that opportunity whenever I have multiple value backs.
Yep.
Because I think they're just, I think, and I know statistically they're just much more likely to have good games.
Yep.
But if I can't get there and I can't even get up to like Taysom Hill, I think David Njoku is at least appealing at 56. He can get yardage. Most tight ends can't. The return last week, not really phenomenal, but he was limited in practice all week. Had a 43% route rate on just 18 targets, 18 routes, which was 43%, 3 targets, but did include a downfield look. It could blow up in my face if he's still limited, but I want to track the practice report for Njoku. And it's just a spot that I would play Njoku if I really needed to.
Yeah, I think Njoku is my favorite lower salary guy. If we're talking below Taysom, I'd probably go George Kittle above him. But if we're talking below $6,000, I can't find anybody I'd really put above.
Right. I at least
Njoku.
wanted to have someone down here. So
it's a good week to spend up, though. So Mark Andrews, also my first love. 32% target share in 3 games without Rashad Bateman. His salary is down to $7,300. Like a 32% target share at tight end should be $8,000 salary, probably somewhere around there. Last week didn't produce, but there was a ton of wind in that game. He hasn't had double-digit FanDuel points since October 16th, which I think that'll ensure that he is minimally rostered. So I love Mark Andrews. I am almost positive he'll be in my single entry lineup. My first one. If I've got one, it'll probably be in it. If not, it'll probably be Taysom Hill. He played 17 snaps at quarterback last week. He played 2 at running back, 1 at tight end, 1 in the slot, and 3 out wide. He ran 5 routes. He had 9 rush attempts and 3 pass attempts. He played just 2 of 11 snaps inside the red zone, but that obviously could have been a lot better. So his floor sticks. His floor is 0. I think that's worth mentioning. But also, floor is stupid.
Every tight end other than Kelsey's right now is basically 0.
Yeah. So just take the guy who has a path to 30, and Taysom Hill has that. So he's the only guy, I think, on the slate who has a 90th percentile outcome as good as Kelsey or Andrews. Maybe not 90th on their level, but like somewhere near theirs. So can I interest you in any Taysom Hill this week?
I will say I had him on my season-long teams. Not that anyone cares, but I dropped him, and I felt worried, and I was able to get him back.
Oh, good.
I feel good. Wow, so that probably tells me that I should want to have some Taysom Hill this week.
I think he's a good play. Like if I can get a 4th player on my team who has the potential to get 9 rush attempts, pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. Okay. Defense. Let me hear it.
I got the Panthers. The Broncos depleted on offense. They can't score points. They've not scored points all season. Carolina's 8th in pressure rate. They're pretty scrappy right now. They one of the misnomers I think with pro sports is these guys only care about the money, but some teams want to win and look like they care and
pride.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's exactly the same, and I know there was win, but
are you saying the opposing team doesn't have that?
Held the Ravens to 13 points last week. I don't see how the Broncos do much of anything. Russ has a 9.6% sack rate, the NFL average being 6.8%. The odds that Denver goes for 40 and there's no we get negative points here, it seems less than 0.
I like the other side of that game a lot. I think both sides of this game are great. I might not use a defense outside of this game. The Broncos are 39 as well. They are facing Sam Darnold, who might be an upgrade, but also we've seen Sam Darnold, as a rookie, I called him Jameis Darnold because of the dumb stuff he does. That's probably not gone. So, and Jameis Darnold is also offensive to Jameis now. So sorry, Jameis. I will retract the nickname. But he just makes some dumb mistakes. And the Broncos defense is one of the best in the league. So I might just stick to this game. I don't like using defenses in games with low totals, but I think here, given how mistake prone both offenses have been, it's not as bad as it typically would be.
Yeah, it's, So for like some betting purposes, I just try to simplify things at this point of like how do these teams put up points against these like two viable, to different degrees defenses. I don't know how you regret playing the Broncos defense.
I would also say the Dolphins defense at 44 against Kyle Allen is enticing. Their defense is doggy do, but that doesn't matter that much. So I don't mind the Dolphins at 44. Don't mind the Commanders at 43. So a lot of options around 39 if you want to get off, differentiate from this game a bit, but I also don't feel a super huge need to do so. Okay, we've talked through the slate. Any final thoughts for you, having discussed literally everything there is to discuss on this slate?
There's probably going to be like a game that just is less popular than others.
Ravens, Jaguars.
Or Cincy,
Titans,
Tennessee.
Bengals. Yeah.
So, some of the better scoring, like some of the better projected scoring offenses they have big spreads. So I still think that those teams can put up points.
Mm-hmm.
And worrying about them is a bit overstated, but if you want to stack some games, we have some fun ones.
There's a lot of good ways to play this game, to play this slate. So, William, if you can't talk yourself into Antonio Gibson, you don't have to use him. You've got other options out there. I think that's the liberating thing about this slate is you can trust your gut and still be right because there are a lot of ways to play this. So dig into the expected workload of these guys, dig into injuries again Sunday morning, look at the wind, familiarize yourself with what might have changed since we talked, and hopefully go win yourself some cash on Sunday. That's all that we have here for today. If you're listening on Wednesday or Thursday, want to check out our Thanksgiving podcast. Again, that is up both in the numberFire Daily Fantasy podcast feed and on the FanDuel YouTube page. Go get that and hit subscribe wherever you are consuming this podcast. Brandon, people have questions for you on Twitter. Where can they find you there?
On Twitter, Gdula13, GDULA13.
And I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. A happy Thanksgiving to you, Brandon. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone listening as well. Safe travels. Have fun. Enjoy it. We'll talk to you all once again Monday to wrap it all up. This has been the Heat Shack Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire.